In the Sahelian zone, pastoralism plays an important role in the livestock sector, representing between 70 and 90% of cattle breeding. It is characterized by the transhumance of livestock, allowing for constant adaptation to climatic constraints and the availability of resources such as water and pasture. It involves significant seasonal movements linking production basins to consumption centers located in the major cities of the sub-region and in coastal countries. These movements are not without consequences for the livestock, but also for the breeders. In order to address the various constraints related to pastoralism, the Regional Support Project for Pastoralism in the Sahel, or PRAPS, has been established. The project stems from the Nouakchott Declaration resulting from the High-Level Forum on Pastoralism held on October 29, 2013. Funded by the World Bank for up to $248 million, it is here in the offices of CILSS, the Permanent Interstates Committee for Drought Control in the Sahel, located in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. That coordination is ensured.
Le CILSS est une réponse politique, institutionnelle, technique et scientifique.
The CILSS is a regional, political, technical, institutional, and scientific response to drought, desertification, land degradation, and climate change. Among the most affected populations since the 1970s, as you know, the CILSS was created in 1973. There are herders and agro-herders. Most Sahelian farmers practice livestock and agriculture at the same time. There is also a certain number of actions from regional heads of states with the 2013 Nouakchott Declaration for Regional Pastoralism Support. One of the achievements is the consistency of the partnership between the CILSS and the World Bank. And it's an opportunity for me to address my warm thanks to the World Bank for their support concerning this second phase of the CILSS project, which is at the beginning of its implementation phase for a new project of food systems and which will be funded by the World Bank from 2022.
Un nouveau projet sur les systèmes alimentaires que la Banque mondiale financera à partir de 2022.
Le PRAPS 1 est tout ce que d'abord
The objective of the PRAPS 1 was to strengthen agro-pastoral populations' resilience with the climate change effect by implementing a certain number of actions while keeping the same regional and sub-regional strategic integration policies. All actions initiated aim to support populations for better pastoralism management, for a consistent development of their activity, which is also an economic one.
Efficace de ce secteur qui est une activité économique.
The livestock sector in West Africa is of strategic importance and of considerable economic and social significance. It contributes up to 35% of the gross domestic production of agriculture, a contribution of the GDP that can be increased with the right investments. Hence, the interest shown in the implementation of the PRAPS by the ECOWAS Commission and the WEMU, which provide political leadership.
Depuis le démarrage de ce projet au niveau national et au niveau régional.
Since the beginning of this project in the national and regional levels, WEMU has attended all the PRAPS works, from its first to its last regional technical committee, from the first to the last technical talks. I can say that WEMU Commission never missed any PRAPS technical meeting. This demonstrates the importance that authorities have in this project regarding the specificities of the 4 WEMU Commission country members that are PRAPS beneficiaries, namely Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso and Senegal. Regarding that, authorities gave us instructions so that the Commission attends all high-level actions of the PRAPS, and that's what we try to do through our contributions and participation to meetings, but also through the political endorsement of this project. That's what we have always done, so that authorities within the government will feel their own support for this project.
Afin que les autorités, en tout cas au niveau des États, puissent encore accompagner la mise en œuvre de ce projet.
In addition to its economic importance, pastoralism contributes to the resilience of rural populations, often poor and marginalized, who depend largely on livestock for food and a source of income. It also allows the Sahelian populations living in highly affected agroclimatic zones to enhance the value of their territories and to cope with shocks thanks to the movement of their herds. Hence, the objective of PRAPS to improve access to essential production resources, services and markets for pastoralists and agro-pastoralists in cross-border areas and along transhumance routes in the 6 Sahelian countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Chad and Senegal. It also aims to improve the capacity of these countries to respond in a timely and effective manner to pastoral crises or emergencies.
Donc le PRAPS a permis donc de mettre en place des infrastructures structurantes pour soutenir
The PRAPS allowed us to set up structuring infrastructure to support pastoral activity mainly in the health sector, as well as the trade ecosystem like the cattle markets, etc. All these initiatives are meant to support pastoral activities in order to provide populations with revenue-generating activities. I would like to insist on all the technical support that has been provided to us in terms of approach harmonization, notably for the pastoral resources monitoring to avoid pastoral crises and improve animal health. There is also a harmonized approach for epidemiological surveillance. The PRAPS has organized high-level meetings, which were meant to bring all actors together to exchange and gather recommendations on cross-border transhumance. These discussions have allowed us to remarkably avoid conflicts in certain areas.
Qui ont permis quand même quelque part donc de réduire les conflits par endroits.
Since the project started in 2015, several key interventions have been launched to strengthen pastoralism in the Sahel. To achieve this, the project has focused on 5 components: improving animal health, improving natural resource management, facilitating access to markets, managing pastoral crises, and project management and institutional support. As a matter of fact, convincing results have been obtained during the 6 years of implementation.
En termes de résultats atteints, on peut dire qu'on a à peu près plus de 300 et quelques
In terms of results and achievements, I can say that there are 600 water points that have been rehabilitated in the 6 country members, as well as more than 800 cattle markets that have been built or rehabilitated, and some 6 million hectares of land that have been acquired thanks to our sustainable land management program. The regional initiative has succeeded in sharing all the planification, collecting and follow-up tools in terms of monitoring and evaluation. This to allow the 6 countries to work in a concerted and unified way to produce common reports, etc. Concerning the tools that have been put in place, like I said, in the monitoring and evaluation process in general, I can say that there is the monitoring and evaluation tool produced by a company we contracted with, and that has allowed us to set up all the indicators of this tool's monitoring and evaluation. This is to allow us to produce the results in real time, which is very important. There is also the monitoring and evaluation handbook that has been elaborated regionally with the participation of all the stakeholders of the concerned countries for a harmonized planification, monitoring and evaluation tool in all countries.
De l'ensemble des acteurs des pays pour pouvoir avoir les mêmes outils de planification, les mêmes outils de suivi et de rapportage.
The productivity of herds determines the quality of life and income of human populations. This makes the control of animal health a major factor in the productivity and, consequently, in the well-being of pastoral households and national economies. This explains the funding allocated to the sector of more than 25 billion CFA francs to ensure effective control of priority animal diseases such as contagious bovine leurre pneumonia, tuberculosis, brucellosis, foot and mouth disease, and especially the eradication of small ruminant plague. This thanks to vaccination and epidemiological control of pastoral livestock and veterinary drugs.
Notre travail, le travail que fait la coordination régionale de la composante santé animale est très cadré. Ce travail repose sur trois
The work which is performed by the Animal Health Unit is very monitored and lays on three main components. The first is the targeted technical support, which includes training and coordination. Concerning the targeted technical support, our duty is to bring support in each country in terms of vaccination and strategic plans elaboration, in terms of training handbooks designing, as well as in terms of strategic plans elaboration concerning little ruminant plague eradication and control of contagious little pneumonia. As far as the second point about training is concerned, the ministers of the respective countries entrusted us with a series of trainings that they assess as significant priority training programs in their countries and that we have to guarantee in the first phase of the project. The third activity concerns coordination, through which we have the obligation to gather all countries at least once a year in order to exchange on important points regarding activities they're interested in order to define either their achievements or programs or harmonization plans. It's about coordination meetings that we are used to holding in that regard.
Soit leur réalisation, soit leur programmation, soit leur harmonisation. Ce sont des réunions de concertation que nous avons l'habitude effectivement d'organiser dans ce sens.
With investments of more than 35 billion CFA francs, the PRAPS has made it possible in the 6 countries to increase the capacities of the various actors at the local and national levels to ensure sustainable management and peaceful access to the various pastoral resources. This was achieved in particular by securing access to natural resources and sustainable management of pastures, but also by developing and sustainably managing water access infrastructures.
Il y avait 2 objectifs quand même qui ont été fixés par la composante.
There are at least 2 objectives that have been assigned in Component 2. It's about identifying surfaces where to apply the Sustainable Land Management Program, as well as the Sustainable Land Management Practices. The target was 5.5 million hectares in 6 years of the project's implementation. Hopefully, we went even beyond that target, with 6.4 million hectares, or 128% of the target. The other point was water access infrastructure. Here also, there are some efforts that have been made, even though we did not reach the 385 water points that we aimed to set up, but we arrived hopefully at up to 353 water points, divided between big-sized drills and several types of water point wells that have been developed, like ponds and swamps, that are accessible to a great number of animals and other species, more than well and drills.
D'espèces et aussi un grand nombre d'animaux en même temps, plus que les puits et les forages.
In order to increase livestock sales, investments of more than 23 billion CFA francs have been made in the construction and rehabilitation of market, infrastructure, and the establishment of modernized national livestock market information systems.
L'accès au marché, comme je disais, c'est d'abord l'accès à des infrastructures appropriées. C'est cela qu'on a essayé de
The access to market means access to adequate infrastructure. That's what we try to do by supporting the construction of more than 100 markets within the PRAPS countries. But access to the market also means access to commercial information. To better sell their cattle, they need global market information like who comes to this market, who usually comes to these markets, what average quantity can be sold there for those who sell, and how many animals you can buy there for those who come to buy. These types of information are useful for market access and help herders and traders to make decisions of going to such or such markets.
Tout comme les commerçants d'ailleurs prennent la décision de fréquenter un marché en toute connaissance de cause.
The Sahel is considered one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to climate change, with temperature increases expected to be 1.5 times higher than the rest of the world. Climate vulnerability is compounded by the region's heavy reliance on rain-fed agriculture and its natural resources to support food security and livelihoods. This situation leads to competition for access to land, water, and food, which has caused several conflicts between farmers and herders. In order to better manage these crises, PRAPS, with the funding of approximately 19 billion CFA francs, has implemented several actions within the framework of crisis preparedness and diversification of lifestyles, as well as emergency responses to crisis situations.
En matière de gestion des crises pastorales, les préoccupations
In terms of pastoral crisis management, the transhumant herders' preoccupations were not considered. In case of a crisis, the support used to come to them varied. As a matter of fact, when the support comes, they have already left for another region. Also, there was not any response planification framework regarding pastoral crisis management. For that reason, we organized a workshop for the training of trainers concerning norms and guidance of emergency support. That was for a capacity reinforcement destined to the personnel of ministries in charge of livestock, for humanitarian actors and pastoral professional organizations.
Des organisations professionnelles pastorales.
Building on the success of the first phase of the project, PRAPS 2 will continue to invest in strengthening animal health systems, improving access to and governance of natural resources, promoting peaceful local and transnational movements along transhuman routes, and increasing incomes. It will also allow strengthen the sector's governance capacities in national and regional institutions and among key stakeholders. For the second phase, the World Bank reprise. For the second phase, the World Bank has provided $375 million.
Les défis, vous savez, il y a plusieurs composantes. Le PRAPS s'est attaqué au volet en matière de santé animale. Donc,
there are many challenges. For example, the PRAPS decided to tackle the issue of animal health to continue the strategic plan's implementation policies in terms of animal health. It was also to continue plans and strategies of eradication of bovine lower pneumonia, etc., as well as cross-border diseases. This is the first aspect. The second aspect concerned pastoral resources management. We needed to support countries in capacity reinforcement by providing them with methodology tools for an efficient management of pastoral resources. Concerning the development of infrastructure, we wanted to set up a framework that could allow them to sell their products and profit from income generated by these activities, knowing that the end goal for the market is to be able to sell everything.
Donc il faut qu'au bout de la chaîne, les producteurs puissent vendre et profiter des revenus générés par ce secteur-là.
Le PRAPS 2 également, tirant les enseignements donc, de la première phase,
considering lessons from the first phase, our goal is to reinforce institutions whose goal is to work on pastoral institutions, because we realized that the lack of significant figures and indicators to demonstrate the importance of these sectors in the development. As a matter of fact, the PRAPS will insist on developing scientific documents, like the impacts of pastoralism on households' revenue, as well as the macroeconomic dimension, that is to say, whether it contributes to economic development. There is also a controversial dimension, which is the impact of pastoralism on climate change. We are also aiming at producing sufficient documents to evidence that pastoralism is not as pollutant as it is written in some scientific documents. Our goal is to demonstrate that this production method does not produce as many greenhouse effects as stated.
À l'émission de gaz à effet de serre.
Je crois d'abord que le pastoralisme est devenu un pôle structurant.
I think that the idea of pastoralism has become a structuring approach for the CILSS and for the whole region. That's one of the results of this project that has allowed a certain interest in the livestock activity of the region. It has also allowed to set up a regional mutualization of pastoralism management because it's one of the value chains of the economic activities of the region, from Sahelian countries that are producing countries to the coastal countries that are consumption countries and also host to heritage, because pastoral mobility is now a reality in the region.
La mobilité pastorale aussi est un acquis au niveau de la région.
The objective of the World Bank through the PRAPS is to enable pastoralism to fully contribute to poverty reduction in the Sahel countries. To achieve this objective, PRAPS 2 will continue work with regional institutions to contribute to the integration of policies, harmonization of regulations, and strengthening of coordination between countries.